even know if this is our intro music. This came on the podcast machine that I got. Is this a stock noise or someone else's? I don't know. We'll find out.
Stephen R. Covey once said, "Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply." We have something to say worth listening to. This is Real Talk. Real Talk. The podcast. Telling the story and lessons learned of industry leaders, entrepreneurs, professional athletes, and the movers and shakers of the business world. Have you been told no? Have you been told that you can't do it? Have you been told that you'll never get to the next level? That noise. Yeah, we said it. We're telling you you can do it, and you can get to the next level. If others have done it, so can you. Real Talk. This is Real Talk, the podcast. And this is your host, Mason.
What is going on, world? It is Mason with another episode of Real Talk. Today, we are joined by a man who has been dubbed the $1 Million Mentalist. He has written many books, been on the world's largest stages, from Vegas to America's Got Talent, and has even performed overseas for our troops. He's taken that wealth of knowledge, experience, and psychology to the business world, where he teaches his unique perspective on negotiating, leadership, sales, employee experience, and overall positive change. Please welcome Jonathan Pritchard.
Man, that was a fantastic intro. I have a lot to live up to. That guy sounds awesome.
Hey, he's a pretty interesting guy, is what I hear. You know, I've seen him on TV.
I like to think so. Really good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let's start with there's the elephant in the room. You're a mentalist, I think, kind of first and foremost, or is your foundation.
Exactly.
For those of us who aren't super familiar with what a mentalist is, what you do and all that, break that down for us a little bit.
Basically, a mentalist is a flavor entertainer that uses applied psychology, showmanship, and moxie to make a room full of perfectly rational, reasonable people think that I can read minds, predict the future, influence behavior, all sorts of kind of supernatural skill sets, that those experiences happen because I'm really good at engineering impossible experiences. Right? So it's all just communication, information architecture, and experiential design to make the seemingly impossible look very real. So basically, I do a 70-minute mind reading show where I tell people their deepest, darkest secrets, but in a fun, lighthearted, kind of corporate-friendly way.
So how does one even go down this path? Like, I don't know any 12-year-olds who grow up and say, I want to be a mentalist, you know? How do you even get started down that road?
Well, it's a niche of a niche of entertainment. So there's this big umbrella called mystery entertainers. So for me, that's tarot card readers, that's crystal gazers, it's magicians and illusionists and street magicians. Well, in every beginner's magic book, there are coin tricks, there's rope tricks, there's some mind reading tricks, there are illusions you can build at home. And the mind reading stuff just seemed to impress people the most. Like it'd freak them out, really. And I'd be like, oh, I like that. That's really fun. This is really neat to do. Also, I grew up dirt poor, like literally on a dirt road in a trailer park, really? Single wide trailer. That's where I grew up. Spent most of my day, like my Saturdays, running through the woods playing with sticks, right? So mentalism is very inexpensive to get into because it's just talking to people. In illusion, you'd have to build a whole bunch of crap, have somewhere to store it and drag it out to a show. For me, it's kind of like stand-up comedy where I show up with maybe a briefcase and it's just me connecting with the audience. So it really has its roots all the way back to when I was a kid playing around with magic tricks, and then got more interested in the mind reading tricks. And then as I get older, I got more interested in understanding why mind reading tricks work in the first place. Not like how this trick works and that trick works, but why is mind reading as a form of entertainment? What's weird about our mental wiring that makes these wacky experiences possible? And that is a weird rabbit hole and a wormhole into understanding how people navigate reality, how they make their decisions, how they decide who to trust, all sorts of stuff that is applicable in every single human relationship.
So was this something that you learned that you did you because there's not a ton of mentalists out there, and like there's not a ton of magicians, but I feel like there's more material and mentors, if you will, out there to show you that kind of thing. Uh, I don't see a whole lot of, or I don't know, are there a lot of mentalist programs out there or whatnot, or like how did you do your
No.
thing?
Well, a lot of it comes down to trial and error. You learn on your own, you read books. There are a lot of books because there have been, through history, more mentalists than are alive today. So most of my first mentors were from the late 1800s, early 1900s, 1920s, right? So those are my first mentors, and learned enough from them so that when I met my kind of real life mentor in college, his name is James Randi, and he is world famous to a lot of cool people. He had $1 million challenge to anybody who claimed to have real psychic powers or real supernatural powers. Okay, if you think you've got those powers, tell us what you can do, under what conditions, and with what percentage accuracy. We'll design a double blind test to evaluate your claim, and if you pass, then you get $1 million. And he's old as dirt. He died recently, and for the whole second half of his life, that was his whole mission. The first half was he was an escape artist. He was a magician. He was the celebrity guest on Happy Days, and he was such a big star that they had a 2 episode like
Comeback
guest
episode deal.
spot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, exactly. So he was super famous in his day, and then I helped run the challenge and helped design testing protocol for the claims. So working with him, he was my direct mentor who taught me a lot of what I know, and then seeing how people thought they could scam their way to the money, I was like, I can do these tricks better than they can. And
Right.
that's how it developed into a show.
So it's almost like you reverse engineered it. Like that's pretty cool. You were like, well, that works well, that doesn't work well. And were there any times during this process where like you were thinking, wow, I know this isn't real, but that person's real, really, really good. They had, like one of the participants had you thinking that they may or
I
may
I
not.
would I would have loved to have that experience,
Was it
but
was it pretty
no,
blatantly
not even
obvious? Yeah.
close. Yes, because the the yeah, because professionals who know that they are tricking their audience, but the audience doesn't know that they're being tricked, which is the case with a lot of certain dynamics. And I don't want to get sued by those people, but
Sure.
you know what kind of dynamic we're talking about. Randy would say, listen, we're honest liars. We are, because we tell the audience that we're going to lie to them, and then we do. And that's what makes it okay. But all these people who are using the same methods to make claims that are not true, lying to these people that are giving them $20,000 to talk to their dead grandma,
I think I've seen
right?
I've seen things like this on television, right?
Yes, you
Mm-hmm.
have.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never, ever seen anything coming close to enough evidence for me to change my mind because I know the tricky ways of making it look real. So it's blatantly obvious when you know what you're looking for.
Right.
It's just plain as day. There you go, oh, they're doing a this, they're doing a that. And if you aren't initiated in what those methods are, it looks like a miracle. You could start a religion with it. I've thought about it more than once. Like I would love to start a religion. I still might, but I just can't bring myself to take money from people under false pretenses, having them believe I can do things that I can't. Because there's a meta level to all this, which is it really does rely on influence and human communication, framing, information architecture. So all those dimensions to it are applicable in a whole bunch of other contexts, but I'm not going to claim that I have a spirit guide that can talk to the astral plane to your ghost, right? Like there are correct ways to frame the applied psychology of understanding how these cons work, but using those principles to do a better job at helping people in business and life.
So you would consider yourself more of like an entertainer and an educator than, say, a spiritual medium.
Exactly.
Okay.
On stage, I'll say anything because it's a theater show. Everybody knows they bought a ticket. That
Right.
I'm making jokes here. It's not at a church, it's at a theater, right? Or more likely, I'm the after gala dinner entertainer, right? Like you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and it's this year's annual awards. So you brought me as an MC and the end entertainer. No way in the world anybody there is going to believe that I'm like at a church and this is church, right? So
Right.
yeah.
So
And off stage I immediately, like, people go, okay, so when did you know you had the gift? I'm like, I explained this is all cheats, cons, and swindles, right? Like I said that on stage, but since you're asking me off stage when I knew I had the gift, let me be ultra clear. They were all tricks of information, tricks with words. Magicians do tricks with objects. I do tricks with information. And then they're like, no, there's no way. I was like, no, there is a way. I know what
tell
that way is.
I'm telling you right now.
Exactly. So I try my best to never make those claims off stage in a way that would make people think I'm the solution to get in touch with the spirit of their dead kid, or they want to spend their last $50,000 on me for one chance to talk to their dead wife, or find oil, or whatever else idea people have had to get in
Right.
touch with me. Yeah.
So what was the first, I guess, gig that you had where you did this? Like, because that's got to be pretty nerve wracking for the first time, being like, all right, here
I
goes
kind
some
of
magic.
right. I kind of lucked into it because I was 13 years old. I had learned how to juggle fire already. I already had a pretty good repertoire of magic tricks, and some solid mind reading tricks were in there. And I got paid $200 to walk around for 2 hours at a company's summer picnic at their employee appreciation. So
When you were
that was my
13?
first gig. Yeah, 13 years old.
How many years ago was that? Like a 200 bucks? Like that's, I mean, that's a lot of
Yeah.
money for a 13-year-old now. And imagine, 10, 15 years ago, like, holy
Oh, it
cow.
was yeah, it was 25 years ago. I'm 38 years old
Oh, wow. You don't look
now.
38.
Thanks. It's all the
Yeah.
boozing and carousing that I do. But
But
yeah, that was
dang.
literally 25 years ago. I got paid $200 for 2 hours. $100 an hour was my going rate at 13. So I get a lot of offers like, hey, we've got a budget of $500. I was like, yeah, I got paid $200
Yeah.
25 years ago. Inflation, baby. Come on. Like, that's insulting.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, dang, that's awesome, dude. So
Yeah,
you walked around and did all of your acts that way, huh?
exactly. Exactly. I literally got paid just to be a conversation starter, an icebreaker. But really, what the value I'm bringing is to be the conduit to connect two people that need to talk to each other, right? So this person and this person have worked together for years, but haven't had anything to talk about besides the weather. Then there's this kid that shows up, and I can tell you what card you're thinking of, and oh, here's where you grew up, and here's the name of your first pet, and they're just, wait a minute, do you know this kid? I'm like, no, I thought he was yours. I'm like, no clue. What are you talking about? Okay, thanks a lot, guys. See you later, and then walk off. Now they've got something to talk
A
about.
shared experience. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
They're going to be talking about that. I know for a fact because my clients tell me that literally years later, employees are still talking about that experience. So that a lot of event planners will focus on the dessert that gets eaten in 3 minutes. Literally, people cannot forget what I can do with them.
No, yeah, I can.
It's
Like,
just impossible.
You don't forget having your mind blown.
Right.
That's
right.
awesome.
And it is such a personal experience that you're never going to forget it.
Does seeing that look on people's faces, like when you've just nailed a part of your bit, like does it ever get old seeing that shock or this like, and you're like, yeah,
No.
it's that good every time.
Yeah, it's like sticking a 10-point score landing in the Olympics, right? For gymnastics. You're just like, I just did the hardest thing in the world. There's literally fewer than a dozen people who can do what I do at the level I can do it. And I just nailed it. So yeah, that's awesome.
That's got to
it's
be
a delight.
There's a video on your website I was watching where you were counting, you're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, it's 2. That was your number. And the girl, like, it just happened so quick. The girl's just like, what? And you can just see she's like, this, who are you? Like, what? Like, you're a mind reader. No? And I felt it too. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was an important detail, was to tell my clients, I'm like, listen, stunned silence is better than applause.
Oh yeah.
There's going to be extended times where you're going to think this isn't going so well because people aren't clapping, but it's because they are literally stunned silent. And I like to just let that sit there for a minute. And then just hearing a pin drop is just, oh, I love it.
It's amazing how there's like that group think mentality that can kind of happen with crowds where everyone's laughing or everyone's on the edge of their seat like that. And I mean, it just speaks, I guess, to your accolades of like how you're able to draw that out of every single person like that and be comfortable in the silence, right?
Right.
That's awesome.
It's not comfortable at first. It was very uncomfortable, and to the point of that kind of group think of everybody being on the edge of their seat, that is engineered. That does not happen by accident. That is designed, planned, and practiced so that I can execute it every single time.
As I say, you've probably been through some situations where it hasn't panned out the way that you've wanted it to pan out.
Early on, absolutely. Until I kind of figured out the recipe, and the first 3 minutes of my show, of my keynote, of my anything is practically exactly the same, because it's designed to bring an audience together. Because beforehand, you've got pockets of friends, you've got individuals, but you all have to have a shared experience of some sort in order to unify people into an audience. Once there's an audience, then you can take them on a journey. But if you try to take a whole bunch of different people, it doesn't work. You've got to get them all on the same mental page, on board with the kind of buy-in of, yeah, I could watch this guy for the next 50
Right.
minutes. Yeah, sure.
It's
Then they'll go with you.
I think is it like you can't just go walk out on the street and do stand-up comedy. Like everybody kind of, you need to go to a club where everyone's like, I'm here to laugh and to be on that kind of that plane, right?
Well, that's you just you just touched a landmine, because street performing is how I got my start too.
Oh, okay. So tell me a
Street
little about that.
performing is the most difficult form of live entertainment, because at a club, you've got paying customers that knew that there was going to be a show, that bought tickets, they're financially invested. You've got lighting, you've got a stage, you've got a sound system, you've got a lot of things going in your favor to set you up for success, so that when you walk out on stage, you're already way ahead of the game. Street performing, you've got none of that. You've got a whole bunch of people that have something better to do than stop and watch your little tricks, right? So I went to Asheville, and I went to downtown, and I would build a crowd. I would just start juggling and calling people by what they were wearing. Hey, Mr. White Shirt, yeah, come on over. You're never going to see another thing like this. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, well, you got to find out. Come on over. I'm like, yeah, all right. And then you go, yeah, Sally, come on in. See what he's about to win $100. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So then now you've got 3 people. And then, oh yeah, sir, don't be shy. Yeah, come on in. You're gonna want to see this, because this guy, he's gonna try to win $100. He's gonna lose 20. But it'll be great fun. Everybody's like, is this guy getting swindled? What's this? So you're generating interest, pulling people in. Once you have a big enough audience, then you open a loop, is kind of what it's called in programming terms, where you open a process and you don't close it. So you borrow $20 from somebody, and we'll put it somewhere safe, like on this clip, or hand it to this guy. We'll get back to that in a minute. You're not going to get back to that. You're going to get back to that in 10 minutes. But everybody is emotionally invested to see what's going to happen to that guy's $10. It was $10, right? Oh, wait, no, it was a 20. It was a 20. 3 minutes later, we're doing the thing, and you might get your $5 back, man. You might get your $5 back if you do this, right? So now they're just so entranced, they've completely forgotten that they wanted to go to that boring store. This is fascinating. Now, 20 years later, that's what trade show work is. I'm the guy in the booth that has worked with the sales team for 2 months to create a custom show that amazes people while delivering the marketing information to pre-qualify their ideal clients. And I'm the guy in the booth drawing a crowd. Everybody else hates me. They hate me. Every single person at the trade show hates me, because we build a huge audience that's spilling out into the other aisles, into the other booths. And I'm like, listen, don't get mad. Book me. Book me next time, right? So then I build that crowd, entertain them, do a 12-minute show, quote unquote, but it's really a very entertaining qualification process where I educate and qualify, then say at the end, if you want to know more, go talk to Sally and Carl over there. And for the rest of you, we've got your free giveaways. Here, you're going to learn how to scam your friends with this trick right here. Of course, it's branded with their contact information and everything. And we do that twice an hour. That's how my clients get 4 or 5 times as many leads out of a trade show than they do with the one-on-one salesperson. Be like, hey, how's the day go? Oh, a cup of coffee? Oh, no.
It's funny.
Please stop.
So I've done plenty of trade shows, and I hate it because the guys like you, I'm like looking across these booths, and I'm like, dang, I can't compete with that. And they're not even you. It's just a really good salesman. So I can only imagine, especially some seasoned vet is used to like pulling crowds or whatever. Like crowds are going to gravitate towards the greatest entertainer, So you're just, I'm sure that guy's gonna be like, what's going on? Like I
Exactly.
would hate you too.
Exactly. It's okay to be hated when you're the best, right? You
That's
get
right.
used to it.
You don't get to the top without any haters, man.
Right, right.
So
Give them a reason to hate you.
there you go. So during this whole period of from the time that you're 13, growing into this whole, uh, I guess what would you call your occupation?
My occupation is a consultant.
Okay.
I'm a consultant. I help my clients connect to success. It sounds smarmy, but that's really what happens is I help them connect to opportunity, to resources, to people, to business, to their employees, to their customers. It's all about connections. So I know how to design experiences that will connect people to whatever it is, whether that's a website. Website design is engineering an experience to connect a visitor to the next step, whether it's an email sign up or a phone call, whatever that conversion needs to be. Okay, well, if you're in sales, you need to connect your client to your solution or connect them to a referral if they're not a good fit for you. All right, how do you connect in a negotiation? How do you connect with your negotiation partner and figure out a win-win-win solution for everybody? Right? So it's all about connections because it's all about human beings trying to find answers and meaning and relationships. It's all just connection engineering.
So before you got to this point of like being able to take that knowledge and apply it to real life applications, was it mainly entertaining that you were doing? What and
Exactly.
was it purely entertainment? Did you have any like were you delivering pizzas or doing anything on the side to support yourself as well, or were you able to do it purely through your entertainment?
I wish I had delivered pizzas too. I held on to the I'm a full-time performer. I'm a professional. I don't have a job. I don't have a side gig. I'm professional. Well, what happened is that I did a lot of college shows. So I worked the college circuit for a long time. And that was really good money, right? Like I was getting paid a couple $1,000 to go do a 60-minute show. Like that's phenomenal. But I would do one a month maybe, and all the travel, all the hotels, all of that comes out of my pocket because I got to pay to get there, right? So it was kind of I never got ahead really. And had I pulled my head out of my butt and go, you know what? I've got 29 more days of the month. I should get a job so that I can have enough funding to promote myself more effectively. But that took me 10 years to figure out. So there were times where I was on tour but really kind of living out of my car, right? So it sounds sexy when you're like I'm on tour, but it's really that you don't have anywhere to live because you couldn't afford anywhere, so you're just kind of driving between friends' places. So there was a lot of that.
So would you say that through um your experience and your growth and in those times, would that be like your biggest mistake that you made? Do you ever look back and like, man, I could have accelerated my growth quicker. I could have done something a little bit faster. Um,
Yeah, if I had to pick one regret to have, I guess that would be it. But all that free time gave me freedom to learn a whole bunch of awesome stuff and cultivate a whole suite of skills that most people never even get close to nailing. So in some ways, living like a bum in that way was awesome because I kind of ran the numbers, which I was like, all right, 40 hours a week times 10 years. Okay. I've basically had, if you do the 40,000 hours deal, I've basically had 4 lifetimes worth of time to myself to do whatever I want than most people ever get one. right? So that's how I've gotten to be literally world class at several things that most people never even get close to achieving one to that level. So, it still was pretty awesome.
Kind of a double-edged sword for you then, I guess, you know?
Exactly, exactly. But I have other giant screw ups. Like I got married super early and then went on the road, and that's not what I signed up for. Like, this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do, and it was not a good match. And then I hit the big red self destruct button instead of being a grown up and going, well, let's chalk this up to irreconcilable differences and let's just go our separate ways. Instead, I just kind of went the self-destructive route of drinking a lot and then partying when I was on the road, and definitely not obeying the boundaries of the marriage vows. So yeah, there was definitely that kind of rock star spiral out portion of my life. So yeah, it's not all rainbows and kitten whiskers. I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, and that's kind of why I want to share my story to help people that might be holding on to that. I have to be this entertainer. I have to be this thing that's really not doing it for me. So how about you go get a job, provide some stability for yourself to give you more control so that you can be more strategic about how you do spend your free time, because all this free time isn't really serving you all that well. So let's help you avoid some of these huge speed bumps that will drastically slow down your progress.
No, yeah, thank you for sharing. That takes it takes a lot to admit, misfortunes and missteps that you've made in the past,
Thank
and
you.
the biggest thing I think that most people just don't do is, it sounds like one that you've kind of forgiven yourself for that, but it also sounds like you've really learned a lot from it. Um,
Right. The best way to forgive somebody or yourself is to change your behavior. Right? Like, that's the best apology, is to not screw up that way. Better in different problems, not the same problem over and over and over again. So the yeah, that's kind of my approach to it, which is I don't like not talking about stuff, because when things are off limits, those are the fulcrums to be used as leverage, right? So anything you're too scared to talk about, well, now that's going to be what's used against you.
right.
So it's kind of like sunshine will help clear up all those shadows, and not be something to be scared of anymore.
So after kind of all of this, where does you ending up on America's Got Talent kind of like falling? Because that's not an easy stage to be successful on, right?
No, it is not. That is a very difficult environment and experience. It was phenomenal. It was great, terrifying, frustrating. Basically, every human emotion crammed into one project is basically it. So it was when I was living in Chicago. Went out to the trials there, made it through several rounds, got invited to go out to New York to be in front of the judges, and I was in front of the judges and put a paper bag over Nick Cannon's head for the part of the routine, and got 3 out of 4 yeses from the judges, so that's awesome. And then the producers just never call me back, right? So even though you are successful, the producers are the final people who are creating this product. So not everybody that gets through gets onto the show for their full arc. So the
Gotcha.
judges let through more people to give the producers a broader range of options in order to create the most compelling season of entertainment, which is different than this is a talent show.
Right. So you weren't really eliminated. You were just never called back.
Exactly. I was kind of in
Dang.
that success limbo,
They
right?
go they ghosted you.
They ghosted me.
That's
Yep.
I've been ghosted by many women and many business people many times. So It's a
Yep.
part.
You
It's a part
just
of life.
exactly. You either get a thick skin or you get out of the out of the industry.
And I imagine with what you do, being an entertainer, especially like such high stakes in the moment, like you know, make it or break it, kind of like you're used to situations and you know how to handle yourself.
Exactly. There's no one make or break situation. This is not a career maker. Maybe back in the day when there were a total of 3 television channels, no internet, and maybe one radio station. Yeah, sure. If you got on Johnny Carson, you were made.
Yeah.
Okay. But nowadays, no, man. Like, you could be
Yep.
on TV 5 times and people are like, well, so is my sister, so
Right.
all right. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. It's not the same as it was. And we got YouTube. I mean,
Exactly. And you've got your own tools to reach a global audience, so I'm not complaining by any means. I love living in this time where we can reach people all over the world sitting in our own homes. This is awesome.
it's and as weird as it sounds, just to venture a little off topic, but I in respect to that, I think 2020 was kind of a blessing for a lot of people to show that like I know that like I was starting to talk to friends that like I didn't even talk to a whole lot anymore, just because like communicating over Zoom and face calls and things like that became more like common. Like I would never FaceTime someone just cause, but now we do, because it's like that or I'm not going to see you.
Exactly, exactly. It force fed people into digesting technology in a way that wouldn't have happened without it,
Yeah,
really.
how many older people, like probably in their 50s or 60s, who aren't super computer literate now, know how to jump on Zoom and are so much better because of that? Because there was no kid at the office to show them how to do it anymore, kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly.
So moving from, it sounds like your focus has shifted from being purely an entertainer to an entertainer, educator, sales initiator, if you will.
Hmm.
Uh, what kind of made you make that pivot? When were you like, okay, I'm going to take my skills as an entertainer and apply them to the business world?
It. I wish it had been a lightning bolt moment where it just came out of the blue and it was revealed to me that, oh, there's this whole world. No, it was kind of a slow burn over several years, because when I do what I do, I basically am ripping a hole in people's reality and just going, hey, look, here's my world, here's my universe that you couldn't even dream of, right? Because I get autograph lines, and then these college students would be in the autograph line, and then they'd be like, man, I can't even imagine doing what you do for a living. Like, I can't, I don't understand how you could read minds, but I also don't understand how you learned to make a living being an entertainer reading minds. Like, I never knew that could even be a job. So if you can't imagine something being possible, there's no way it's going to happen for you, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I started talking to people. I'm like, listen, I grew up in a trailer. Here's how I did it. I did a lot on my own. That demonstrated enough to the right people that they would invest in me and share opportunities. And here's how I did it. So then a couple years after that, I start getting emails from these college kids going, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you came to my school. I talked to you for about 10 minutes. You shared some stuff that just blew my mind. And I made some huge changes, and it's made all the best difference in the world. And I just had to thank you. So there you go. And that was kind of the first peek into, oh man, okay, this stuff is cool, right? Because then it made me evaluate myself to go, you know how like when you put on a watch, you feel it for a minute and then you just totally forget about it,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
That's what happens when you grow and change as a person. So you always feel like you, but the you today is in a totally different place than the you 5 years ago. So growing up dirt poor to become a world traveling entertainer is no small feat, but it's something I took for granted because it's something I did. All right, cool. So it was when I started getting those messages back that I realized not everybody else had the same experience I had. Not everybody else had the mentor of James Randi. Not everybody else had these opportunities. Oh, okay. And it really kind of crystallized for me when I put it together that when I'm an entertainer, I'm helping people forget their problems for an hour. And that is a very, very noble job, right? Like being an entertainer to at least give people some laughs in a world where that is needed more than ever, and that's always the case. It's really important to be an entertainer. So that's cool. So I don't feel bad about being an entertainer. It's just that I'm distracting them for an hour, and then I'm sending them right back into the same world. They might peek into the, oh, maybe I could do more if I put my mind to it. That's kind of that's the message of my mind reading show, but it might be too subtle. They may not believe it for themselves, right? So they're like, well, that guy, it's easy for him because he's a mentalist. Yeah, okay. But I was realizing that the psychological techniques and principles that I was using on stage to make my show work was exactly what I had done in my own life to make my job work, to make my business work, to make my relationships work, right? It's exactly the same stuff because it's all mindset work. All right, cool. So now, well, how do I help people? Well, on stage, I get perfect strangers to stand on stage in front of an audience full of people. That's public speaking. That's phobia number one.
Or choose
And I
death.
get right. And not only do people get in front of a crowd, but they have a great time doing it. Like that's phenomenal. So, those techniques of building rapport, of establishing trust in order to bring them through an experience, hey, wait a minute, that's sales. Right? Like that's negotiation. That's public speaking. That's presentation skills. That's pitching your startup. So, I thought, how can I use my experience, my skills to help the most people the most quickly? And to me, business is the most ethical way to help the most people the fastest. Because if you help a salesperson be more effective, they close 1% more business on the conservative side. Okay, that's a lot more money for the company. That's a lot more commission for that salesperson. I'm better off because I got paid a ton to go teach the team. The clients of theirs are better off because they're now in a position to understand why that company is going to do a better job for them than they would have without the salesperson knowing how to do that. So that salesperson, their family is better off because now they can afford piano lessons, right? Like it's this really weird fractal ripple effect of helping a team at a business, helps the business, helps the CEO, helps the customers. The customers' lives are better. The employees' lives are better. The CEO's life's better. My life is better. My family's life is better. That's awesome. So I had another mentor who was one of 7 CEOs at Sharp Electronics in the 80s that took Sharp from $1 million company to a $1 billion company. He taught me how corporate world works. Here's what they're worried about. Here are their concerns. Here's the language. Here's what they're worried about. All that map. Then I could speak corporate, and now I'm in.
Very nice. I like that. So in terms of what you offer to companies now, right? Like what sort of services do you provide? I heard earlier you say you do some emceeing, do a little bit of show work there. But what else do you do as far as like, working with these companies?
There are a couple different kind of Venn diagrams with some overlap, because if you think of it as a spectrum, on one end is entertainment. You need me just as the entertainer at your gala. Okay, you know that I'm corporate friendly, that I'm not going to say or do anything on or off stage that's going to embarrass you or the CEO so that you get fired, right? You need that trust. All right, I can deliver that all day long. I've worked at Disney, I've worked at Universal Studios. I'm squeaky clean. Okay. So I could be the entertainer, and for trade shows, that's lead generation. So I do custom lead gen at trade shows for companies that tend to. One of the heuristics I use is, are you at a 10 by 20 or larger booth? Then you've got enough budget to invest in my services and for me to deliver enough value that it makes sense to book me. So trade show work is in the booth as a lead gen machine and as a hospitality suite kind of VIP experience deliverable to their customers and clients as a special thank you. We've brought this Vegas entertainer to our hospitality suite. Normally, you've got to pay top dollar, but we got him just for you guys. Like that's a pretty sweet deal, right?
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. Then there's the education and training portion. So I've got 4 workshops: sales, negotiation, presentation, influence with integrity. So those are the 4 workshops. They're each 2 days long for up to 16 people. 16 people is the cap, so that there's enough time and bandwidth for me to give one-on-one feedback on the skill development. Because it's not just I'm filling their heads full of information, it's active skill training. So that's kind of the main ways. And then there's kind of consulting work of the customer experience. What's it like to do business with your company? So I just see what the deal flow is from first exposure to retargeting to conversions on the website. What are your emails like? And really helping dial in the front end marketing messaging to help improve their bottom line that way in this brave new technology world.
Yeah, no, I mean, companies need people like you for sure. Just to have that outside perspective, and especially with someone with your skill set who understands just how people think and like you said, the front end perspective of it. So on top of all of those things you do, you also have written a handful of books. How many books have you written?
Ones I like, maybe 4. I wrote some like ebook things mainly just to test out, see what Amazon's all about. So they're hot garbage. Don't buy anything that's not the 4 I mentioned here.
Okay.
The one I'm most proud of is Think Like a Mind Reader, which is basically 20 something chapters worth of all the same topics that kept coming up at every cocktail party, at every gig, at every show. People were wondering about these same things. Oh, you're so confident. I wish I were extroverted like you. Turns out I'm introverted. I've just learned how to be outgoing. So there you go. Right. So all those kind of, oh, it must be so easy for you since you're so confident. Nope. I was not born this confident. I developed my skills to be competent. Then that's the confidence came later, but it's not a fake it till you make it. I practiced until I created it, right? So, okay, next. So all those conversations about how to think about opportunity and yourself are crammed into those pages. Plus, the book itself is a prop that has secret methods built into it that do the trick for you, so that you can fool your friends with the book. And that's why there is no digital version of that book, because learning how to use the book as a prop is the process of becoming a better communicator. Because
Okay.
at first you're gonna try the trick, and your girlfriend's gonna be like, no, that's not even a puzzle. Like, that was awful. What you wasted my time. But then you get better at it, and now it's a wait a minute, how'd you do that? That's what did you do? Then you get really good at it, and people will be like, how did you know what I was thinking? Right? Those levels of mastery of exactly the same process, but it's not just doing the right thing, it's doing it the right way at the right time, right? Then there's another book called Perfect Recall, which are very simple but really effective memory techniques to help you remember important information. The third one is Learn Like a Mind Reader, which is the meta skill of learning. So, learning how to learn to shorten how long it takes you to get competent in a new skill or area. So, if you learn how your body wants to learn things anyway, you'll learn it in a way that you want to know it, instead of trying some strategy like, let's just repeat it a whole bunch. So
Right.
that's a cool book. Then the fourth one is the other one I'm most proud of, which is Wing Chun Life Physics, which is a lot of the same ideas, but from the bottom up physics approach and embodied physics that is kung fu. So I've had a pretty much a daily kung fu practice for almost 10 years now. That's kind of one thing that pulled me out of the spiral. So I've been practicing martial arts pretty much every day for almost a decade, and wrote a book about, physics has universal laws: gravity, momentum, those magnetism, electricity, that kind of thing. So they're the same everywhere in the universe, hence they're universal. The human pattern is pretty much the same. You could be taller, you could be shorter, but you're pretty much going to be similar to me, to that guy, right? So there are more effective and less effective strategies for aligning your human body to those universal forces. They either work or they don't, because it's physics. So when you learn how to navigate your human body in real space, in very dynamic situations, you learn what works and what doesn't in more abstract levels. Because whining about it, wishing it weren't the way it is, trying to talk to the other person, trying to control the other person, none of that's going to work when they're punching you in the face. So it teaches you real fast to focus on, what are you going to do about it? What are you doing right now to maintain your boundaries? What actions are you taking? Not wishing, not hoping, not praying, not trying to insinuate. What are you doing? Because the universe only responds and respects to action. That's it. That's the only thing.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. That's
Well,
awesome. I
thank you.
mean, you literally wrote a whole book on it. So I mean, and all those are available on Amazon as well.
They are. They are. That's I love it because they print it. I don't have to keep a whole bunch in my house. It's fantastic.
That's awesome, man. So one more thing during that I want to touch on is like during 2020, especially with what you do being trade show related. I'm in Vegas, so I know about the trade shows, and that pretty much went to zero. Not pretty much, it went
Yeah.
to zero. It went to zero.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see a little incline back into things. But what was 2020 like for you as a, I would imagine most of what you did before was in person. What 2020 bring to you?
Ooh, boy, man. Yeah, it was a challenging year, of course. I kind of saved my bacon because I have a long-standing, pretty much full-time job as a marketing consultant. Right, so talking to entrepreneurs and business owners and Fortune 500 companies as as a marketing consultant, right? So I work with a super awesome company that's been around for like 15 years as kind of one of their hired guns. So they know I've got this whole life and I got all this stuff going, and they're like, "Listen, we love you so much that you're just on the payroll. Do your thing, and when you need to go do other stuff, go do other stuff, but otherwise we want all of your free time." I'm like, all right, cool. So I've been doing that for about 2 years. So when 2020 hits, that marketing stuff really didn't slow down. In kind of job dollars, that was one of the best years for the company,
Oh, wow.
because so many businesses that for 10 years could ignore internet marketing because we go to trade shows, because we're handshake and word of mouth, we're manufacturing, we're respectable, we don't do all that newfangled stuff,
Love
we
it.
don't
I
do none of
love
that
it.
Facebook. My clients don't hang out on Facebook.
They want to look you
So
in the
that
eyes and shake your hand.
exactly. Well, 2020 happens, and now your business has 4 months to figure out something you've had a decade to address, but now you really need our help, right? So that's why, in a way, it was a really good year. On the live side of things, yep, it all evaporated overnight. Like literally within a week, all my trade shows, all my keynotes, all my trainings, all my shows, college, corporate, galas, all of it evaporated. Just gone. So I spent
Insane.
about a year, well, about a month being butthurt, right? Just being like, oh, stupid coat, oh, right? And then I also had in my head, I was very problems oriented for that month, because I was like, I'm best in person. Like that's where it really happens. I'm phenomenal in person. I can work a room. I could glad hand with anybody. Like I'm I'm a hired gun for in person.
Right,
And now
right.
I can't do that. Okay. And then started thinking about it. I'm like, well, okay. I guess everything's going digital. I'm used to doing like Zoom coaching calls. So I'm used to Zoom. Well, who's used to kind of video stuff? Live streamers. Live streamers are fantastic. So I went down the rabbit hole of, oh, a stream deck is what I need to control. Oh, there's a thing called OBS. Okay. Oh, I could build out a whole studio in my home with a phenomenal camera and lights. I could do a studio show at home. Oh, okay. So I built a mind reading show specifically for the Zoom platform. And there's some really cool things that I can do from a performer's standpoint on Zoom that I can't do no matter what in-person show I'm doing, because every single person on Zoom is sitting across the table from me. So it's like every single person in the audience not only has a front row seat, but they have a across the table seat for me where they could just sit and stare, right? Be like, I'm going to get them, right? So there are benefits to the digital version that you don't get in person, but I do appreciate that everybody's zoomed out, and now that things are kind of opening up and we all got our shots, that I'm going to forget everything that's Zoom. I'm going to forget that 2020 happened and everything I had to do there. So we're going to overswing back to even more in person. But through 2020, it was really cool to do a lot of virtual shows. And then a whole bunch of clients were like, oh, you're doing a virtual show? Can you do that for our company? I'm like, absolutely. So I wound up being able to do 3 or 4 engagements in one day from the same room for clients all over the country. So in a way, it was fantastic because I could do more shows in less time for more clients. It was great.
that's only going to add to like your offering portfolio, I think, in the future, even, right?
Right.
they're like,
Because,
because you can do it from
yeah,
anywhere.
exactly. So I can do it from anywhere. So they can just pipe me in if they want. Also, multimedia production should be more on people's radar from an event planning standpoint. Because previously they're like, oh, you got to bring in a camera and projectors and live feed and what? This sounds complicated. We're not going to do this. But now everybody and their mom is very familiar with it. So now we can do some really cool multimedia stuff with a live cam on stage projecting the overhead shot and all that kind of stuff. And that's really cool. So I'm really looking forward to bringing even more awesome sauce to in-person events now.
Well, dude, that's phenomenal. I'm glad you got a. I'm glad you had a path during 2020. I know a lot of people were lost, or their path got really crowded really quick. So that's super cool that you're able to find a way to pivot, and I think it's only gonna strengthen your brand as you move forward.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome,
It's
man.
not something I wished on anybody, nor did I want to go through it. Just glad I was able to navigate it and transition in the way that I could.
No, man, it sounds like you did an awesome job. So, all right, well, wrapping up here, I just want to we do this thing called rapid talk, real talk, rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you like 10 or 12 questions. They're really easy. Just fire away with whatever your answers are. All right.
Got it.
All right. So Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Cats or dogs?
Cats all day long.
Oof.
Yeah.
Triangles or square cut pizza?
Oh, I prefer square cut.
Oh, dude. What was your first car?
A 1991 Honda Civic hatchback. It was my family's car, and then it's what I learned to drive on, and I love it. It didn't even
Stick,
have air conditioning.
stick shift or manual or
Stick
automatic?
shift.
Heck
Yeah.
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 They say that's the new millennial anti-theft device. Just get yourself
I
a manual.
love it.
Get yourself a manual. No one's going to steal your car.
Exactly. And I learned here in the mountains, North Carolina. So learning stick shift on a steep grade when you're
Uh-huh.
at a complete standstill, that was next level.
If not, you're going to learn real quick
Yup.
or you're going to rear end someone going forward somehow.
Exactly.
What is your favorite city in America?
Oh, I am very partial to Chicago. I
Okay.
lived there 8 years, moved recently. I have a lot of very good memories. I was just ready to be closer to family and be in the mountains. But yeah, Chicago is just great.
Chicago's a happening place, man. Logan Paul or Jake Paul?
I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't know who either of those are.
Oh, they're YouTube guys. What they're just YouTube guys. Check them
Yeah,
out. They got a couple podcasts, pretty good.
got it.
Are aliens real?
Yes,
Are aliens here?
absolutely.
Will you come back in 100 episodes and check back in with us?
Please.
Heck yeah, dude. Well, dude, I thank you so much for coming on, guys. Share with us a little bit about where people can contact you. Again, your website, where they can buy your book. Give us the whole rundown real quick, and we'll put all of this in the description link as well. Let's hear, it, man.
Outstanding. All right. So the hub where everything lives is on my personal site, jonathanpritchard.me. So that is where I put everything, all my social links and books live there. So that's where you're going to find everything. I tend to change my Twitter handle every 6 months or so. So whatever you put in there is going to get outdated. So go there for all the socials. But I'm nearly non existent on Facebook. I am way too on Twitter. So find me on Twitter to know what every thought that passes through my head is. So that's there. The other project that I should mention is Elite University. That's the URL actually is elite.university. And that is where I put my courses so that people who want to learn this stuff but aren't at a Fortune 500 company that's booking me to come in, you can learn all the same stuff. So there are courses on mindset and destroying procrastination. Then there's rapport building, and negotiations and marketing and building a business system, from promoting to your hub to convert visitors. All that stuff is there at elite.university. So that's the place to go if you want to learn all of my secrets and how mentalism can kind of level up what you got going on. Another thing that I could talk about for hours is a project called Urbit, and I am starting an internet service provider company with a completely new internet protocol that runs on a completely new type of server, that runs on a completely new type of virtual computer that you can pack up and run on a whole bunch of different types of machines, so you don't have to have the physical object. In that way, you own your own social media server. It's a single login. You control all your data. You control all your relationships. Nobody can deplatform you. Nobody can run an ad in your feed that you don't want to see, because it's your computer that only talks to other people that have their computer, and you're just talking straight to them. There's no centralized entity that is the arbiter of who you can have a relationship with. So it's a very powerful tool to empower individuals to build a community in their interests, rather than what's best for the megacorp that's farming your data.
Is there somewhere people can find out about this, or is this something that's developing?
No, escapepod.store, because I like to say the internet is on fire. Please move to the exits. board your escape pod, and that's what I call the server, is your escape pod. And then it blasts you off into outer space, because the technology is so weird, it's clearly Martian. And it's an open source project. There's a lot of different people working on this really cool stuff. So I have a whole community on this completely new internet that you can't get to from a URL. You've got to run your own server. So at the Escape Pod store, you could either be a pilot, where you pilot your own escape pod, or you're a passenger, where we run your ship for you, and you just get to enjoy the relationships. But if you ever wanted to pilot your own escape pod, you are the owner. You always have full rights to it. There's no way that we can access your data or anything like that. So it's a really cool project with a lot of cool pieces. So go to escapepod.store, and that'll get you taken care of.
Sweet, man. Well, hopefully on our next visit we can dive a little bit deeper into that. And I mean, you're in the convention world, and I live in the convention capital of the world. So maybe next time we can do it in person. That'd be awesome.
Dude, don't you threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, or maybe, hey, even if the conventions are still shut down and you want to come out and work, we can work.
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
I will take you up on that.
Hey, and as will I. Well, I thank you so much again today, Jonathan, for your time. If everyone enjoyed listening to this, please do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Go check out all the crazy, awesome info that Jonathan has. Go pick up one of his books on Amazon. And with that being said, we thank Jonathan Pritchard, the $1 Million Mentalist, for joining us today. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cool. Take care. Have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to Real Talk with Mason. Make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. We hope you've had fun. We know we did, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Mason on Instagram at Real Talk with Mason. Walter Badgett once said, "The greatest pleasure in life is doing what people say you cannot do." And we tend to agree. Till next time.